Hi, everybody. This is Erika from In the Company of Cards with Dr. Lena from Lena Down Under, back again.
Howdy.
This is our sixth episode of Worldview 360. So thank you all for coming. Oh, Grace Gilbert from Texas. I'm glad we have a Texan here because I do want to. I want to at least state by the Texas Senate race, because I think there's
Yeah.
some interesting observations we can maybe make about that. But welcome, everybody. Hi, Lena. Great to see you after a week.
Hi, Erika. Good to see you too. I really look forward to these opportunities to have
Good.
a
Good. Me
chat.
too. Me too. So, of course, the subject of the hour is, for the moment anyway, the State of the Union address last night by the felon. It was he definitely broke records. It was the longest speech ever given. The record that he broke, of course, wouldn't you know, was his own.
Yeah.
So okay, whatever. I guess you get your wins where you can get them, right? I don't know if you all watched. I will confess, I had told my audience I was going to watch, and then it came time, and I couldn't.
Couldn't do
do it. So I watched the pregame, and I watched the postgame, and I watched the People's State of the Union, which was the alternate programming that
I think that was a great idea.
Yeah.
There were a few, and so I think that says a lot in itself, and I'm sure they got high viewership.
They did. I think that was terrific, and again is one of the upsides of the thing that can draw all of us together, which is the internet. You know, there was a time when they couldn't have done this, but I thought it was great. I thought that the rebuttal was fine. The response, the Democratic response, I think it was very measured, though. And one of the things that I also think is that, you know, again, it's like bringing a pillow to a gunfight.
Yeah.
But you know, what are you going to do? I mean, the rules or tradition has it that the other side does give a response, and so they gave a response, and
but only the Dems are playing by the rules.
That's the problem.
And one of them should have got up and said, well, how do you feel after 2 hours of that inarticulate, vicious, divisive dribble?
Exactly. You know, even if she had gone
the rest of call it.
That would have been perfect. If she had started with that, that would have been perfect. But
yeah, because people want that. They want a real thing, not a measured thing. These are not measured times.
Exactly. No,
so if you took what she said in and of itself, very decent, very good, but not that none of them are up to the fight.
No, it's not what the times call for.
No.
But, you know, it is what it is. I saw something also interesting, which was Aaron Parnas today did an interview with Kamala Harris, which I did watch that. Again, pretty anodyne, I would say, pretty, standard. And apparently he got a lot of blowback. People thought that he was endorsing her for 28. And so he came out and he hastened to say, no, this was not an endorsement. It was an interview. And I will be talking to many people who will put their name in the hat for 28. Not that she has done that, but he said, I'll be talking to a lot of the candidates. Again, you know, she said what you would expect her to have said. But again, it's kind of like we said about the response to the State of the Union. It lacked the fire that we all are hungry for.
The fire. Yes, because whoever comes up with that fire is going to have a huge head start for 2028.
Exactly.
Right? And I don't think they're getting the temperature of the room. I really don't think so. And that worries. I think on the upside, I would love to witness a really fierce race for who's going to be the Democratic candidate. Like whoosh, 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 whoosh,
Well, I'll tell you, we've got people who we speculate will throw their hat in the ring. We have to do more than speculate about. For example, Gavin Newsom.
Would be one.
Gavin Newsom is looking less appealing because of his refusal to tax billionaires. This brings me to what I thought we would talk about later, but I can't hold myself back anymore. I saw we had somebody here from Texas. I really want to talk about Texas for a second. So we know that we've got two candidates for the Senate seat in Texas. We know that Jasmine Crocker is running because they redrew the districts, and so she doesn't have a district to run in the House. So if she wants to stay in politics in this moment, she had no choice, right? To run.
Yep.
We have James Tallarico, who, by all accounts is a good guy, nice guy, who had other options. For example, governor, House of Representatives. But he has chosen to put his hat in the ring for the Senate seat. And the Democrats have done what a lot of times Democrats will do, which is to say, we're going to throw our support behind him because he's the white man and therefore, by definition, electable. Well, I mean, talk about being defeatist before you even get into the arena.
Oh, absolutely. But let me just play devil's advocate here for a minute, because they're both good, solid candidates.
Mm-hmm.
The Dems, because Jasmine Crockett was sabotaged, literally sabotaged, and she's done a brilliant job in Congress, they really should have thrown their weight behind her.
That's what I think.
Having said that, devil's advocate is he is a Christian who can meet them. When I say they, I mean evangelical Christians, psalm for psalm, etc., which has a role in Texas.
You know what? I don't think so. I don't think so. You want me to tell you why? You're talking apples and oranges. Yes, he knows the Bible. By the way, so does Jasmine Crockett.
I'm sure.
Pull out a Bible verse in a hot minute. So, there's that. No, I think when we talk about those evangelicals, they're a whole nother breed. They're Christian nationalists. You have the other people who might find Tallarico appealing, who are religious people. But who are we? I mean, whose vote is he going to win over that she couldn't win over if that were the...
Yeah, look, exactly. And I think they made a big boo-boo here, both politically and in every other way, by not going to support her in this context. I think he still has a role to play.
Absolutely.
And I'd also like to see Jasmine Crockett in a new regime as Attorney General. I think she'd be great. I used to think Kamala would be great, but I think Jasmine Crockett is, hope, destined for it.
Then let that be her consolation prize, because she deserves to be in the Senate. If she doesn't win that, then let that be her. I will tell you, though, I just saw a video of her from tonight. She's doing very well in terms of fundraising. So I think the word has gotten out that she's been a little bit ill-treated, we'll just say. I think that the Dems wanted originally for Tallarico to run for governor or run for the House seat, but his ego said, no, I think I'll go for Senate. And for him, it's an easy decision, I think. he knows he's a white
But
boy.
really, they should have spoken to him when he first put his hat in the ring
Mhm.
and said, look, we appreciate your talent coming forward.
Right.
You've got things to offer. You're just starting. You've got your baby teeth, like you need to start in Congress or somewhere else.
I have a viewer here who said he can pull in the Hispanic voters and independents who can't bring themselves to vote for Crockett, just saying what's being said in Texas. So here's what I have to say to Texas. Would these be the Hispanics that had voted for Trump and then decided, oh, oops? Because if this is how they're thinking, then you know what? They get what they deserve. They get what they deserve. They can't bring themselves to vote for Crockett. What does that even mean? I'm sure that's correct, by the way. I'm not saying to the viewer that I doubt that. I'm sure that's
you're saying exactly.
but then you know what? You get what you deserve. And then I hope that Crockett would get a consolation prize like Attorney General. We'll see. Her fundraising is going well. I've given her money more than once, and I'm happy to do it. And I'm not a Texan, obviously, but it's interesting when we make decisions that, and this is politics, right? Who was it that said? I think it was Obama, who said everybody who gets to this level of politics has a little bit of the narcissist in them. And I think it's not the easiest thing in the world to say, let me think strategically and put the party and the country and the state ahead of my own ambitions. But,
Yeah. At the same time, I think he's got a big contribution to make going forward.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
But I think it was James Carville or someone who said years ago, the Dems never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yep.
And it's a bit like that. But there are worse things than having two good candidates.
No, there absolutely are worse things. Somebody here said that Tallarico was in the race prior to Crockett. And then what about her not standing against the genocide? She has stood out against genocide, by the way. So I would read the record because she has done that. She has. So, okay. Let's just see what happens. May the best person.
And before we leave the State of the Union debacle, the GOP response to it, the people in the room.
Yes.
And you know what it reminded me of?
What?
Apparently with Stalin, and I'm sure it's true in any dictatorships, whether it's Mussolini or single-party Chinese leaders, no one wants to be the first one to stop clapping.
Well, they were, somebody else said it, I didn't say it. They were like seals. They were like trained seals in there.
Yeah.
Well, that, it speaks to the level of cowardice.
They've refreshed their cowardice because they were all snarling in the halls of, Congress and the Senate, and they all know what a devilishly poor president he is. They all know their voters are suffering, but they turn out on the night in their best SeaWorld impersonations.
Right. Right. Well, as Susan Rice said, if they think that when the shoe is on the other foot and the other party takes over, that this will all be, we'll let bygones be bygones, they're thinking wrong, that there will be a price to pay for the horse you chose in this particular race. So we'll see. It was really, it was off-putting to see how enthusiastic they were. I was very proud of Ilhan Omar and also Talib, I think, who when he started talking about the Somalis, they shouted him down, which I think was a good thing. He's well. He's so many things, and yet
He's
so
so many things, and none of them are good.
so. All
Right.
right. I know I just had something that I thought would be a good segue, and then I just
And then
flew.
it's flown out of your brain.
Yeah.
On to, which wasn't on our list, but I happened to see just before we connected, Epstein's storage unit.
Oh, unit, girlfriend, units all over the country, plural.
Yeah, silly of me. Unit, yes.
Okay,
On top of everything that was out there, there was this stuff.
Yes, storage units, plural, all over the country. And I tell you what, I know the felon has got to be sweating bullets. Sweating bullets. Now, here's what's interesting. One of my YouTube people said this the other day because I mentioned the storage units, which is Epstein paid like clockwork on every single one of those units up until 2019 when he died. Now, generally, if you don't, I've never actually had a storage unit, but I'm assuming if you have a storage unit and then you stop paying on it, you no longer are the owner of what's in it, correct?
You read that contract, that's right. And often they're auctioned off or whatever.
Auctioned off, right. So, I mean, I don't know how all of a sudden there was this find. I also don't know whether have some of them been auctioned off, which would really be interesting because they could be in anybody's hands and anybody could say, here it is. And I love it because it dovetails what's going on in the rest of the world, which is, every time we're together, I say, listen, those of you out there in the big wide world that's not the US, help us. SOS. Because we need all the help we can get. And by help, I mean, it is the way that the world actually has begun to help with all of these arrests and indictments and job losses and everything else around this Epstein stuff. It makes us look terrible, but it also sets us an example. The world has set us an example for how it can be done, how power that is corrupt can be toppled fast, quick, and in a hurry. So I think that's great. So we know that other countries have these materials, and now come to find out they're in these storage units all over the country.
I know. But what Europe is doing that I don't think the US is doing enough of, they're following the money.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That's where they're getting them.
Yes.
Following money. That's what happened with Mandelson, which nearly toppled the UK government. Yep. But the ex-Norwegian PM, who was named and shamed, an investigation was launched. And a viewer just says here today, he attempted a self-exit during the week. Mm-hmm. That these people are being slammed in their countries of origin because of their financial connections with
now, okay. This is really an important point that you made. It's such an important point. First of all, the United States is alternately a very sexually, I don't know. On the one hand, we're very puritanistic and repressed.
Yes, and then there's this hypersexuality on the other hand.
Yes. So those are our two extremes, right? So what we have hyper focused on, and I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I get why on that part, but you're right. I mean, look at Andrew. Andrew didn't get charged for anything he did with any minor. He got charged for financial crimes of giving information away. Yes. That's always where you should start. You don't start there because then it would all come tumbling down, wouldn't it?
That's right. And as Trump said, my friends would get hurt.
That's right.
Yes, yeah. So I think that's a clever approach to it all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's very clever. Now, then we also have the and I don't know, maybe a viewer can tell me, but I heard a rumor, I don't know, but Thomas Massie, who has been terrific, championing the survivors, the Republican from Kentucky. Well, we know about this Zorro Ranch, where which the felon owned. The property was bought by a guy whose last name is Hoffines. I don't know how you pronounce it. Huffines, whatever. Oh, very wealthy guy, obviously. Bought the property for an actually reduced price, sight unseen, and only now is saying that that's it. Thank you, Huffines. Thank you. So now saying that they're gonna repurpose it as I can't even say it, a Christian retreat center. They better get the exorcist out and spray that thing. Well, anyway, but point being, there were also drums and drums of sulfuric acid.
Yes, and they've got literally the receipts for 300,000 gallons of water, 300 gallons or some huge amount of
if we can find the Titanic at the bottom of the sea, we can find those bodies. There is sonar, there is radar, there is, forget the dogs. We can find that. But I've heard that Thomas Massie, because he has connections with Huffines, has said, I don't want to hear anything about Zorro Ranch. Wait,
all right. Well,
I hope not.
Coming back to what you just said, I hadn't heard that it was destined to be a Christian center.
Yeah.
That makes me instantly suspicious, meaning they don't want anyone to have a look what's there.
Well,
and so as opposed to him being a guy, even a filthy rich guy who bought a huge property sight unseen, this is now an infinitely more sinister connection. It then becomes private property and it's a really big deal, and they don't have cause to examine
they moved past that. No, they moved past that. This is the good news. So yes, as somebody pointed out, this is true that Huffines' son is in the White House, working as a job in the White House. So it's all very cozy. But in terms of it being private property, the good news is that the New Mexico legislature got right on it. And if something is potentially a crime scene, the fact that it's private property has nothing to do with anything. And they are moving in the big earth movers and the radar. And
they're acting on it.
Yes, they passed laws, and they are moving in there even as we speak, which is terrific.
Oh, that is good news.
Yeah, we're going to find some bad stuff there, I'm pretty sure.
Oof. Grace in the comments says, and we should all remember, that ring is still operational. Those freaks don't just stop because their dealer is dead. They find another provider.
And it's international.
And it's international, and it's to the highest level.
That's right.
So absolutely, yes.
So apparently, yes, they're already bulldozing it. And I think that the New Mexico legislators are just really impressive. They just got right on it.
Good on them. Go New Mexico.
Massie. So this is Ashley saying, Massie didn't show up to Wexner's deposition either. He voted for the SAVE Act and put forth a bill to remove the U.S. from NATO. He may be the controlled opposition to redirect attention from Trump. You know what? I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I believe what Ashley's saying here. I think that makes all the sense in the world.
It actually makes perfect sense. It's not a convoluted leap. It is how do you explain these things?
Yep. Somebody wants to give a shout out, and I love my Canadians. Somebody wants to give a shout out to Mark Carney, and I am here for it. He is a great leader for our time. And yes, carry on, good sir.
And it was wonderful about the Olympic hockey teams. the women's team refused to go to the White House and deal with that hideous man, and they had their photo taken with Mark Carney, the US
Good.
hockey team.
Good.
The men, on the other hand, went, oh, yeah, you know, we're with you.
Not all of them. 5
Not
of them.
all of them, but
so,
yeah.
you know, props to those 5 who didn't go. But yeah.
And good on the women. And I think that was a great shot across the bow with Mark Carney.
Absolutely.
So Canada is lucky. Like, if things were normal, I know they're not, he would be slightly on the boring side as an economist and a conservative, you know, But he has worked with international economies and sort of, and if you ever needed an economist, a true economist, not a flashy person with money, not a businessman, someone who actually understands economics, because Trump couldn't read a spreadsheet if his life depended on it.
No.
You know, and a lot of these guys couldn't.
Right.
You know.
Right.
That's why the crypto barons, the young oligarchs, I think are a bit unsure, mystified, can't work out why gold and silver are going through the roof, because none of them have an economic background.
Right.
And they all told themselves, remember 5 years ago, more, they were saying, if traditional economies collapse, they'll go crypto. They'll put their money in with us. No one needs gold anymore. Go for crypto. Well, of course, that little fantasy's dead on arrival.
Yeah.
So they don't get it, you know, like they're individually rich enough to buy up gold themselves, but they don't understand a fiat economy. They don't understand the linchpins of big economies.
I know. Somebody said, 23 Crazy Chimp, can we have a Carney, please? You know, listen, it's wonderful that there are people like Carney in Canada,
bless
like
him.
Mamdani in New York. It's great. But bottom line, we have to be our own Carney, our own Mamdani. All of us have to realize that we, you know, these governments serve at the pleasure of the people. Which leads me, before we come back here to something else that I want to talk about, which is a great awakening that I have noticed. I did want to go to, if we could for a moment, go to Great Britain. Because, so you have Charles saying, hey, you know, come and get him. I don't care. You know, we're with the victims and the survivors, and you know, do what you have to do, et cetera, et cetera. I read a really interesting article that was theorizing about the chances of Charles abdicating. What do you think?
Well, let me just put my anti-credentials out in front here, which is I am an anti-monarchist. So I grew up in a Commonwealth country where we had the picture of Queen Elizabeth in every single classroom. We had to sing God Save the Queen, Erika, every morning. My old Irish heart just can't handle it. So I had to put that out there. Having said that, putting on my sociology hat, I think he is quite likely to abdicate on genuine health grounds. On the one hand, I think it's two-pronged. He seems to have come through his cancer treatment, but he's not a spring chicken.
Right.
And two, if he doesn't, every year he doesn't give it to William is another year closer, I think, to the end of the monarchy altogether. Their last chance is that the public embraces William and Kate, and it could then become a modern monarchy like Denmark and Spain, where they cycle to the grocery store and wave to people and stuff. And I think he knows that in his royal soul. I think he's trying to protect the monarchy, ironically, by opting sideways.
Well,
so that's my take on it. Anyone else is welcome to their opinion.
I think that there that the article I read actually didn't really come down on one side or the other, but they presented the case. So half the case that they presented was the one that you just made, that if the monarchy is to survive, we need to sort of sweep the thing clear and let Kate and what's his name, William, and the three little kids. Everybody loves little kids, and okay, but here's what's never happened. Remember the big thing when Pope Benedict became the Pope Emeritus, and then there were two popes for a while. Okay, so we've actually, the last abdication, of course, was Edward the Eighth. Was that? I don't know what the number is, but Edward with Wallace Simpson. That's the last abdication, and he kind of, they put him in the Bahamas for a while, and then he went to France, and then he started to have these sort of Nazi-ish kind of tendencies. So they had to put the lid on him. It was all about containment, just keeping him contained.
Yes.
Now, here we have this big, huge, enormous scandal that is not just the sort of the weird picadillos of a prince, but has to do with, as you say, the finances that they got him on, that they're charging him with. And the theory is that Charles might know more than he's letting on that he knows. He must know more. And we have never had a situation, I'm not in the, I'm over here, but there's never been a situation where you have a king emeritus, an abdicated king who's still walking around, talking, whatever. He would not be, he would be a regular citizen. It's not like he's, it's not like the Pope situation. He would be a regular citizen. And if you're a regular citizen and you're not the monarch, just like Andrew's finding out, you are subject to the laws of the state and the questioning of the police and all of that. And so it could be opening up a can of worms for him to abdicate and then be hauled in for not hauled in, but invited in for question. That would be awkward, don't you think?
Oh, it's all very awkward. And the public can't forgive Camilla because of Diana, and there's other layers to the personalities.
Yeah.
But in terms of the institution, they've effectively lost Harry.
Yeah.
And who was immensely popular in the UK before Meghan came on the scene. I'm not getting into, their relationship.
Isn't it a problem, though, to have a very popular little brother when you're supposed to be the head guy? Meaning,
yeah. I don't think it was problematic to the extent that William acted on it in a significant political way, but it would have got up his nose.
Yeah.
For sure, because Harry was the popular one and did genuine, immense amounts of work for veterans, particularly heavily disabled veterans. Right. Where was I going with that? The point being they've lost Harry. No one will miss Andrew in terms of the popularity. In fact, it'll probably give them credit points. They've been as hardline as they have with Andrew. It's
I think they're gonna drop the girls too, Eugenie and Beatrice.
Yes.
From the dole.
Because he's still 8th in line.
Yeah.
He's just a couple of plane crashes away from taking the big chair. So that means reversing 1,000 years of law, but they better get onto it because people wouldn't tolerate it. So again, it's all about, I think, saving the monarchy at this stage.
Well, it'll be an interesting thing to watch. Now, we have 25 minutes left, and I do want to bring up this thing. I don't know. I'd like to take a poll, informal poll, so you could just put your comment in the thing. I just also, by the way, Lena, we should say hi and thank you for coming to all the people who watch this in replay, either on your channel or my channel. So thank you all for watching whenever you are
guys.
watching. We love having you here live, but life is life and everybody can't make it live. And so we are grateful to everyone who shows up for us in this conversation whenever you show up.
Yeah.
So, okay. One of the things that I have waited a little bit to say, because I wanted to see, was it real or was it not real, is what I am perceiving to be a great awakening, all of those letters capitalized, on the part of white women. I mean, in a real, authentic, serious way. Now, I used to think, back when I was younger, when I would talk about issues of race, and people would act like they didn't know what I was talking about, I would think, well, maybe they, are they kidding? Is that true? Do they really not understand how things work? And I thought, well, maybe if I just explain it, then they'll get it. But that never seemed to happen. It never seemed to work. And now I think that they really didn't get it. I think that one of the things I seem to notice, and this is from being on social media, especially Instagram, and seeing white women talk about the fact that what they perceived as protection and proximity to power in choosing to sort of subscribe to a patriarchal standard was really the opposite. Well, I think that. What do you think? I mean, I'm seeing an awakening, and it's like the stages of grief. Except it's kind of it's not grief. It's kind of like, wait, what? Wait,
yeah,
really?
And hopefully retrospectively realizing what they'd been told that they didn't question. Now they've got to this point.
Yes. But I think that what the culminating emotion in the end is going to be is rage.
And that does happen. It's like people roll with things for a certain length of time, then things happen, and then when they're on the other side of it, rage. So I think there's sort of two things going on in the sense, and both involve racism in terms of you can't have a clear-eyed view of America's past, present, or future, or any country. I could talk for 7 hours about what Australia's got wrong, right? Okay. And it does come back because I think a lot of white women have been very disturbed by what they saw ICE doing even before they started occupying the cities. Remember when they were just going in and dragging the field workers out? I think quite a few women, particularly in the red states where perhaps those fields were, they're sort of, oh my God, that's a person with a family, or there was, I think, that wave. Then came the brutality, the sheer brutality of urban ICE, which no sane person could ignore or let alone support. Like it just went another dimension. So that was the slap on the other cheek. And then now, thanks to the whole social media sphere, we are all blessed. We're part of it, and it's a privilege to be part of it. But we're part of this alternative discourse that they would not have had access to before in terms of Christian nationalism. So you grow up as a little blonde in, Bible Belt country. You're not thinking even that you're brought up to be racist. You're just taught to be, this is how the world is. That's how racist it is. It doesn't even, you know what I mean? It's like world order stuff. This
Well,
is how
yeah.
God intended it. This is how you don't question that, because God intended it. Yeah.
Well, and even if you're not a religious person, it's just the way the world is. It's just how things are. And if you are born as a white woman, it comes with certain privileges you're given to understand.
Absolutely.
But the minute you look at it from an outside, from through a different lens, you're discouraged from doing that, first of all. And I think that's rung a lot of alarm bells, that you're discouraged from looking with that other lens. But I think you start to see things as they really are. And I mean, this is not just from the beginning of this country. This is kind of always, it's like, it's a whole,
Yeah.
like the institution of marriage, for example. I took my husband's name, and largely because I said, well, if I have kids, I want them to have, I want to have the same name as them. It never occurred to me to say, wait a minute, I'm the one going through the valley of the shadow of death to bring them forth into the world. Maybe they should have my name. Why? I don't get it. It never occurred to me. So that's
how deep it is. That's how deep it is.
Yes. Yes.
And that at a traditional wedding, the father gives away. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that the ring, it might be beautiful, but it's a token of ownership, is what it is.
Absolutely.
It might as well be through your nose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or around your neck.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I see I'm seeing a lot of white women starting to question a lot of things. And I think it's dangerous. I mean, in a great way.
Yes. And I really hope you're right on that. And that's my vibe too. When the women really turn, and they tend to be more reliable voters and more reliable citizens. We could trade horror stories of individual women who are not like that. But in general terms, women are at the front line of a family's health events, and in terms of elder care, childcare and elder care, the great bookends of women's lives. So whereas in Scandinavia, a man can get up to a year's paternity leave to look after a little one, the US is a million miles from that thought.
A million miles. Well, listen, this is somebody saying this is why Filipino children have their mother's maiden name as their middle name. So that
in Ireland and Scotland a lot too, women either keep their own names or do a double barrel thing. So it's not across the board.
No, it's not across the board. But I will say in this country where people are taught that the way that we do things here is exceptionalist, is the right way, is
the only way, the right way and the only way.
Supremacist ultimately, right?
Yeah.
People are starting to say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I love it. I love it. I write a Substack a couple of times a week, and I had written an article last week, and I said, this is the second draft because the first draft was probably way over the top of what.
So you toned it down a bit.
Yeah. So I had to tone it down. So I had people say, I can take it. I'll grit my teeth. I want to see the first version. And so I wrote about that yesterday. And I said, it's great that people said that. Thanks for saying that. And I'm sure that you believe that about yourself, that you could grit your teeth and read that first version. But that requires a lot from me of trust on my part to give you what my gut says, right? And the problem between Black and white women, I think, is that I talked about W.E.B. Du Bois's double consciousness idea.
Mhm.
People of color, Black people, have to know what they think. We know what we think, but we also know how white people think for survival reasons. It's a double
Absolutely.
thing. And I said, so, with this, the day that I don't have to say to myself,
oh, how's it going to be received?
that's right.
Yeah.
Then I know I can, give you my first draft with wild abandon. But until then, I can't. And I said, I even thought about opening up the chat on my Substack, but I was worried that I would be mommified. But what I meant was mammified. Anybody's mammy and hold their hand and all. And I will tell you, and I said all of that, and people were really good. Nobody came at me and said, what do you mean? I'm not like that. Not me. Da, da. People really are starting to pay attention, be quiet, listen, absorb, and then react from a more educated place. I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic, and I'm sure it's not everybody, but I do sense a shift in white female consciousness that is very different than anything that I've ever experienced or noticed before.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing, and I'm just thinking this now as we're talking, that's fueling this behind the scenes is many women now have daughters, nieces, even granddaughters coming of age in a world where this is the first time kids are not doing as well as their parents. This is the first time in history things are going backwards.
Right.
And I would also say it's the case in the UK, Australia, and everywhere else too. So you had the boomers who had access to resources and things. They did much better than their parents who went through the Depression and were poor and struggle. We got to that stage. And now young people can't afford to rent or buy a house and not have kids because they can't afford to have kids. So I think this is also pushing women now.
And they don't have reproductive rights. So there's that.
And all of that. I think women are conscious of that. And they're starting to look for why that is.
Yes, the SAVE Act, which will disenfranchise women who changed their name when they got married. So now they can't vote because they don't have a birth certificate with their, or they have to buy a passport.
Outrageous.
It's expensive.
How is this not the Taliban?
Exactly.
Please explain the differences. Well, there are some differences. But
well, we don't wear a burqa yet.
But not enough differences. Not enough.
No.
This is, and the whole thing about women's bodies is going backwards. So,
but there is this response to it. I mean, there is a response, and I think
it should be outrage.
The response should be outrage. I think the response to the outrage will probably be ugly, but that's good because then if it's really ugly, people who are still asleep will wake up. You know what I'm saying? I think when you think about why are we across the world second-class citizens? Why is that? Why would the people who give life
life? It does not make sense. In anthropological terms, it does not make sense.
Right.
So, and even a lot of anthropology suffered greatly. There was a global North's misreading of race and hierarchies that went on for 150 years. We haven't got time to get into that now. And gender stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense, so they would be looking, who were the hunters, out there, because that was exciting and, different from being in an urban feudal town. You had these wild hunters. But they're missing the second half of the sentence, which is hunters and gatherers. 80% of traditional diets were provided by the women.
Mm-hmm.
And culturally, rituals reflected that. They worked out that women actually gave birth to babies in a way that the modern Christian nationalist thing completely denies.
Right.
You're only children of your father. She's the vehicle.
Right. Wrong.
It's actually really
the other way around. Yeah. I
So
think
bring back the goddess, I reckon. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that just as we are blowing everything up, Pluto and Aquarius, I also think we are on the cusp of a renaissance.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I really feel we're in this nasty twist of the tail before that actually collapses, and we will see it.
I think so.
We will see it happen. I think it's not decades away because they can't help themselves. So it's like these billionaire oligarchs, instead of how to save this aspect of the rainforest or, purify this river system and do that. No, let's us boys go and live in a compound on Mars. It's a complete disassociation from the earth and the feminine.
Yeah.
Right. It's all part of the same thing.
Well, they can go to Mars. That's fine.
Look, I am so there for them. I hope they accomplish that. But you know what I mean. It's very masculine in the West. Now, before I say another syllable, let me say I'm not talking about men. There are good men out there who are great brothers and fathers and uncles and grandfathers.
It's
and
true.
You get this.
Absolutely.
I'm totally saluting you. It's really important. What's wrong is unquestioned toxic masculinity, which is sitting on this side of the fence. And I think those men will agree with my next statement, which is it's very hard to be a decent man when you're dealing with these guys too.
Right.
I mean, look at Tim Waltz.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at Tim Waltz and the way that he's been made fun of and derided. Why? Because he's a good and decent man.
With a disabled child, you'd single that out and smack him in the face with it, and a child who's old enough to be on social media. You would do that? You would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, look at how he governed. He actually put his money where his mouth was and introduced really, really good things for that state.
Yeah. By the way, people should be aware that even though, there was that big announcement that by Tom Homan that there was going to be a drawdown of ice resources in Minnesota. I'm not sure that that's actually.
They're still there.
They're still there, and what's left is a lot of the press. So, we need to keep the pressure on because and they just decided they're going to take away $250 something million of Medicaid aid from Minnesota. That was just announced. Vance announced that. So, continua la lucha, right? The fight continues.
Yep.
I'm looking through the comments since we've got a few minutes left. Some people saying they're changing their name, they're not changing their name. You should have a choice. And if you do change your name, you shouldn't be penalized when it comes time to vote.
Certainly not. And everyone has to be vigilant around voting in their state. If you're in a blue state, you're probably fine. But if you're not, you have to be totally vigilant because these requirements are going to be different in different states. So there was one here.
Lots of good comments. I love that you all are
so engaged. It's fantastic.
Yeah, engaged. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, Boomer's grandparents went through the Depression as adults. Well, some were parents as well as grandparents. Yes. And then they got to see the rebuilding and the free schooling for vets and strong unions and cheap houses that came out of the Depression and the war. It had to be that dramatic to make these things happen. And here we are in another 80-year cycle. It has to be really so clear-cut and dramatic as to force middle America to insist on better education, but better healthcare, better everything you know.
Exactly.
And for the working class to wake up to who is shafting them. The American working class has been very slow on that in the last 80 years. There's
and that's because we talked about this when before we even came on camera. We were talking about I mentioned the fact that having taught in a public school for 30 years, that really, even in this day and age, in a lot of public schools, the education is not really about creating citizens who are aware and educated and up on things. It's more about creating people who are obedient and compliant.
Conservative, small c conservative.
That's right. And who make good employees. They don't take their sick days. They're happy with their raises. And I think when that's been the system for all those years, again, based on an agrarian model that doesn't even exist anymore, which is why, so few places have year-round school, because you have to go work in the field, but no, you don't. But anyway, I think that the onus falls on parents really to make sure their children are really educated.
Yes, and this is the problem with not teaching labor history.
Right.
As well. If labor history is well taught, and it can be 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 14-year-olds, totally get it. It's about the little guy fighting the big guy. It's all there. It's the Karate Kid. So it can be taught really imaginatively and well, and instill values of real pride in your labor and your rights as a worker. But most countries won't go near it. And our labor governments, I'm critical of them endlessly, because the education system tends not to change with changes of government. It tends to just go on. So I've been whinging about this for many decades now. More labor history, because you can see it when at college level, but even younger, if you bring it up and do it in an interesting way, people can get it in half an hour.
But see, the question is, does the system want people to get it?
Oh, they don't. That's exactly what you're saying and I'm saying. No, the system, we have a slightly different system from yours, but it's still out to produce compliant workers at the end of the day. And now that means something different, and I would argue worse than it did 20 years ago, because those compliant workers don't get the traditional rewards anymore that they used to get in terms of a redundancy. Look at all the people who are being laid off now. Only a small portion are getting redundancy payouts.
Right.
Only
and
not
not having been trained to be critical thinkers.
No, or to unionize.
Right.
It becomes what we call in sociology, it's the private pain, the private embarrassment, the private worry about being laid off, as opposed to saying this is a structural issue. How dare they?
Well, you know what? Pluto in Aquarius. This is all things that are going to have to be reevaluated.
And that's what I want to see more of, and I think is happening. People's personal pain, they're starting to work out, there happens to be another 37 million people in this boat too, or whatever. Ding.
Exactly.
And that gives you courage. And it does take the sting out of the pain. And it does sort of make you think laterally about how you might form a co-op for getting a few veggies or carpooling or something, So it's all Pluto and Aquarius.
Pluto and Aquarius, it's all good. Listen, thank you all for joining us. You know where to find us between now and next Wednesday when we'll be here again. Lena is Lena Down Under, and I am in the company of cards. And if you have things that you'd like us to address, Lena, where are they supposed to put those if they have questions they want us to look at?
When this video goes up on YouTube, so if you've been a live viewer, you just wait a few minutes till it goes up too and put your questions, because we can miss them sometimes live. So you put them under the YouTube version of
If
this
there are
video.
things that you'd like us to look into next week.
We're happy to do that if we can get to your topic.
Okay.
So please feel free to ask questions about them.
Thank you all. Listen, have a great week. Who knows what the next week will bring? This one was pretty wild, but have a great week, and we'll be here again next week. Take care.
Cheers, everybody.